Eddie Murphy is back as Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. He's rejoined by familiar faces like Judge Reinhold and John Ashton as Rosewood and Taggart, along with new characters and new hijinks.
I didn't realize that you couldn't really fly helicopters.
Watch Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. now, only on Netflix. Rated R.
A new client review. Let's see what it says. 1 star. The AC works great, but the tech was late and didn't text us to let us know. Yeah, well, maybe if we didn't write down addresses on sticky notes, that wouldn't have happened. Ugh.
Are you a home service professional who still runs your business with pen, paper, and spreadsheets? It's time to automate your office with Jobber and swear off the old-fashioned way of running a business for good. Quoting, scheduling, invoicing, reviews, and getting paid all with one tool. Start your free trial today at jobber.com.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, she said she and the man with disabilities that she helped communicate through a keyboard fell in love. Was their romance real, or was she typing what she wanted to hear? We'll talk about the documentary, Tell Them You Love Me, from Netflix. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hello, Rebecca.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hello, Rebecca.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes, Rebecca.
This is Thursday's podcast.
It is.
What's coming up on Monday's program?
Hey, on Monday, well, I should say next week, we're starting our summer schedule, so we will have new episodes of Crime Writers On every Monday, and we will also have a CWO classic, a rewind of one of our favorite episodes, and on next Thursday, we're going to be going back to our review of Season 1 of Mindhunter.
Nice.
Ooh.
On Monday, what we're going to be talking about is the podcast Murder on Music Row.
And we've got some banger podcasts coming up and shows coming up this summer we're going to be reviewing, right?
We're just waiting for a couple to come out. And
we have Dan Taberski podcast we're going to be reviewing. We've got some good stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, can I just make one quick plug, Kevin?
You may.
I talked about this in our previous podcast, but in case you didn't listen, I'd like to make a quick plug. Please check out Jason Moon's latest project. It's called the Youth Development Center. It's a 3-part documentary podcast about an incredible decades-long abuse scandal at the Youth Development Center, now known as the Sununu Youth Center in New Hampshire. He has worked on this project for a couple of years, and this podcast is so freaking good. We can't review it on the show, but I can ask you to listen to it. So please check it out. It's only 3 episodes again. It's called the Youth Development Center. You can find it wherever you get your podcast. You'd be doing me a solid, but I don't think you'll regret it. Thank you for letting me plug that, Kevin.
Oh, well, Rebecca, you're driving this car,
That's
so
true.
you can steer down any road you want.
That's true, and I do the final edit, so like it's not like you can cut it out, right?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about something I'm working on.
Record scratch. Anyone else have anything they want to plug that I could cut out later?
Trying a new recipe tonight. No.
Toby's face. Okay, well, with no other projects to plug, Kevin, I think we should get right to the review that we're reviewing. What do you think?
Jump on in.
All right, let's go ahead and drop that first clip right now. Leading off.
Tell me the story of how you met.
I'm pretty sure, or at least I'm hopeful, that I haven't been rewriting things in my head. I didn't want to do that. I see how easily it can happen.
After seeing a report about facilitated communication, a student of Professor Anna Stubblefield asked if she could help his disabled brother. With support for his arm and hand, Derrick Johnson could type on a small keyboard. With Stubblefield's assistance, the nonverbal man could express a wide range of thought, feelings, and academic promise. Over time, the pair fell in love and started a sexual relationship.
And then he typed, "Take your shirt off all the way." I was like, okay. So I did that. And then he said, "Take the rest of your clothes off." And okay, so I did. And then he said, "I've dreamed about this."
But the Johnsons speculated Stubblefield was manipulating his communication, guiding his finger to type out what she wanted. They also believed Derrick was incapable of consenting to a relationship, and the professor was raping the man she promised to help.
This whore done laid down, raped my son, and I had to compose myself because that's my son.
Who was actually typing his messages? In the Netflix documentary, Tell Them You Love Me, we hear from both Stubblefield and the Johnsons and their differing takes on what happened to Derrick. It also explores the controversy around facilitated communication and the likelihood of bias by those assisting nonverbal users. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points from Tell Them You Love Me. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down review. Additional note, I am the host of Netflix's You Can't Make This Up podcast, but of course that has not influenced my review. So Toby, we have Anna Stubblefield in this show. Do you think she is aware of sort of how she comes off in the show, generally speaking?
I am quite sure that she is not aware of it. Mm-hmm. She seems completely clueless as to, as a matter of fact, she keeps saying, "I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong."
My inclination, here I am sitting here doing this, is, I don't mind people knowing because, I'm not guilty of a crime. So
I don't know what information she has access to about the case beyond like her own experience with it. But by the end of the show, it's very, very clear. And it should have been clear to her anyway, that at a very minimum, you're not supposed to be having sex with the people who you're, if you're a researcher and a therapist, having sex with your client is frowned upon. And that's even before you get to the various challenges that this guy Derrick has. So even if you take her on her best faith and the best possible possibility, you've got this horrible kind of breach of trust and authority. And that, unfortunately, is not even the beginning of the whole travesty that kind of happens.
I agree. Laura, I found myself thinking the same thing. I'm like, even if in some world, everything she is saying is true, right? Mm-hmm. She still was responsible for him. She was his therapist. She was his facilitated communicator. And even if everything that she asserts is true about his ability to communicate, she should not have had a personal relationship with him. So as Toby says, that is the very minimum. And the fact that she participated in this documentary so openly is amazing, right?
Well, it's like I kept watching it and I'm like, okay, take a step back. Like, why is she still talking like this? And she's like smiling in this way as she's recalling this like great love affair in her life. And then we fell in love. And it's like icky. And I'm like, okay, so I'm like, she lives in a fantasy world. She's like Pollyanna. This goes back to her childhood when you see that she develops what feels like kind of an unhealthy sort of interest in facilitated communication, in getting involved in this community of people with disabilities, to the point that I started to say, is this like a fetish that
from a very young age, right?
Like this is like a fetish. Like it just gave me the ick feeling fetish. But then as she continues, I'm like, is she just a narcissist? Is she just super mentally ill? I think part of me just wanted to understand, as I continued to watch her talk and talk and talk, what is happening with this woman that all these years later, after having gone through the court system and been found guilty of this, what is happening that she's still willing to talk about this in this way, like this was a real relationship?
Yeah, I mean, Anna's probably a brilliant academic, but she has a profound personality disorder, some mental issues that she's just not aware of. It does, like you said, make one wonder why Anna would act this way, because she doesn't strike me as someone with a pattern of paraphilia. There doesn't seem to be like a recurrence of this issue. It just seems that she latched onto Derrick at a particular moment in her life and started projecting something onto him. You know, whether it's a sense of companionship, being wanted or desired, dependence upon her, somebody who will not refute the things that she says. It was all pretty much set in motion by this pre-existing personality disorder, right? She wasn't attracted to Derrick in any kind of conventional sense, but what he possibly represented in a relationship. He was basically a vessel for her delusions. So she's basically using him as a puppet in the same manner that Norman Bates did when he talked to Mother, right? And she just sticks with the story. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, the one thing that the documentary doesn't delve into tremendously, although it is in the opening credits, are the issues of race here, right? Here we have this white woman who is absolutely using the body of a young black man to satisfy some strange need. And the thing that really struck me, it's like there's the power factor, the privilege factor, like all these things. She says that he seduced her.
This whole thing is framed in terms of consent and his ability to consent because I'm the one who's accused of assault. It's all as if it was all coming from me, which is really not fair to him because he seduced me and he deserves some credit for that.
Toby, that moment where she says that, like, okay, let's just say again, of course, I think we see plenty of evidence that facilitated communication is not great science. Maybe it works for some people. We actually have a professor in the documentary who says that facilitated communication worked for her, right? Like, so maybe for some people, this is a valid thing. But the idea of Anna being seduced away from her family, her husband and child in this situation, like, what did you think about that moment when she talks about what she describes as a seduction by this young black man who's nonverbal, who she is doing the typing for?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things going on here, right? I mean, on like the most basic level, she's kind of seducing herself because she's the one who's facilitating both sides of that conversation, right? I mean, at the end, there's no question that he is not participating in like a discussion of literature with her. I mean, this is just not happening. The race thing comes up in sort of interesting ways, I thought. I was really struck by, there's a part where they're talking to the mother, whose name is Daisy, and the brother's name is John. And they're talking about how once Anna kind of asserted some sort of authority about what Derrick liked and what he didn't like and things like that.
Gospel music, that part, yeah.
Yeah, it was like moving away from the stuff that Derrick had been raised in and lived in, like this culture that was as much of a cultural identity as he had. That was it. And suddenly it's like, no, he wants to listen to like classical music and drink red wine. And again, you're kind of carrying on the conversation with yourself. You're ascribing to him like the fact that he likes things that you like. You're just projecting and projecting all these things that you want. And then I think there's also this weird aspect of it where it's like, in addition to this, it's sort of the proof of sort of my professional work, right? Is that I've got this person who everybody thinks can't do anything. And in fact, he's like this lovely, seductive man who's trapped in this very imperfect body or whatever. And I'm so comfortable and everything with all of this that I have fallen in love with him too. So it feels like there's a lot of things going on her side. And the racial part, it's just really troubling. Yeah. Especially in that she's basically picked a black lover who has no control over this relationship at all.
I gotta say, it made me curious about her marriage because she was also married to a black man.
She's having trouble in the marriage at the time, yeah.
And obviously there's nothing wrong with interracial relationships, generally speaking, right? But like, it made me extremely curious about her like particular attraction to Derrick.
But it's also like when he's writing some of those papers where he's responding and he's like, just like slaves were, captives to their masters, I am a captive to my body. And, she, I think, feels like she's metaphorically freeing him by allowing him to communicate and stuff. It's totally fucked up.
Yeah, I also have some other thoughts on the racial aspects of the story, but I don't want to veer too far away from a point that just came up about when Anna says that Derrick seduced her. I immediately flash back to Great Photo, Lovely Life. That opening scene, right, guys, where like the grandfather said the little girl seduced him. They saved that soundbite towards like the last, towards near the end of the.
And we almost all vomited.
Well, yeah, in Great Photo, Lovely Life. Yeah, that was like right off the top, right? I was like, whoa,
She wanted it. She liked it. Yeah.
Because they saved it near the end, so like it allowed me to sort of watch the whole documentary as it's going along. You hear different things, different aspects, things you start to realize. You let your own thoughts kind of go and start formulating like, well, why, what's this? And then so many things snapped into place with me when she said that, because at that point, this was a curiosity, but nobody really had framed her as a predator, right? Even though it's like, oh, exactly. Obviously, this is what it is. But until that soundbite came out, I'm like, oh, that's the same mindset. And so while there are aspects of other things here where, like you say, it's like the culmination of her professional career and maybe she has a weird kink or a need for X, Y, or Z, she's really just a predator. And, that's like what popped out to me in that moment. Like, wow, that's actually super insightful soundbite.
You know what disturbed me, Laura, is that like there are plenty of people with physical disabilities who have incredibly engaged inner lives and like active love lives and like wonderful full hearts and like can seduce people completely fully, right? And like this woman is like essentially fucking it up, in my opinion. Like it's like to sort of ascribe, qualities to somebody who doesn't have that and say like anybody is capable is basically in some ways, I think, incredibly insulting to that community. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a member of that community, obviously, but I've read a lot about this case and I've read people who've written about this case who do have disabilities. And like, this is a feeling that has come out. It's like Derrick has his own needs and Derrick has his own mind, and Derrick's mind is not the same as the mind she wants him to have.
Right.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does, because I think, we did hear from that doctor who evaluated him for the court case, who says he has the mental capacity of a 6 to 12-month-old child. So that makes you kind of wonder. And then later on, I was like, well, who's writing these papers with his tutor? Like,
that was the only confusing thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
In this case, I was kind of like this facilitated communication where like he wasn't able to hold his hand steady enough to point to the keys. It just reminded me a little bit of like the Ouija board. Like, remember we do the Ouija board? Oh, we're moving the Ouija. Oh, the ghost is here. Like, this is like the Ouija board of communication, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And then we're like, was there really a ghost? Was there really a message from Derrick? I don't think so.
Spirits, should we join Patreon?
Oh.
Yes. It slid over to yes.
Yes or no?
Here's one sliding back this way. It's like, it says CW. Oh, you can't see it, but my hands are doing the thing here.
Yes.
Babe, this is the business
what
section.
What is that triangular thing called? It has a name. The planchette.
The planchette.
It's called the planchette.
Yeah, it's very much like that, the planchette. So if you join us on Patreon, which is...
We're in the business section, by the way.
I just said that. Here,
I am just making it clear.
I'm going to take my finger, and you're going to have me type out the whole script here. If you join us at the leading off level, you get great stuff like the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, and Married with Podcast, plus like crazy bonus stuff that comes in, including Rebecca's readathon. So you want to get all caught up from beginning to end on the Karen Reed trial, go back and listen to Rebecca's daily updates. Plus this summer, we've got episodes of Other People's Problems, Rebecca's game show. If you join us at the Bricker scale level, you get even one more fantastic podcast. It's called Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast.
The Bricks.
And Laura, the last episode was amazing where you went to a burlesque show. Are we getting a new episode about your trip to the Renaissance Fair?
Oh, you are. Lance from the burlesque show has resurfaced at the Renaissance Fair. There were outfits. There were Vikings. There were horns to drink out of. There were women going around with no underwear on.
Ooh.
I got to tell you, if your Instagram is any indication of what this episode is going to be, everybody should be writing checks for $6.
Yes.
Toby's interested in the no underwear, I think.
I want an explanation.
And it was very family friendly.
I want an explanation.
And so this is just a preview of what's to come.
Doesn't sound like that.
It was. So there's children everywhere. So I was looking at everybody's costumes. I was looking at this couple that went by. I'm like, oh, they're very attractive. And I was looking at the guy, he had like a tattoo on his head. Well, Lance was looking at the woman. He goes, oh my gosh. Because her bottom, apparently when she strode forward, opened up and there was nothing else down there. And he was like, oh my gosh, that's kid height. So all these children walking around the Ren Fair are getting a view.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So that was interesting.
Can't wait for that one. Hey, if you join us on Patreon at the Let's Do What We Do level, you can get episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. And if you join us as a deep diver, you get to not only listen to the audio version of Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club, but you can watch on video as Toby records, and you can even participate in the chat. Toby, what's the next book and who's coming on?
The next book is called The Brothers, and it's about the Tsarnaev brothers, who were the two brothers who were responsible for the Boston Marathon bombing. My guests will be Sarah D. Bunting, Julie Millard, who is a professor up at Colby College, and Kate Tuttle, who's the books editor for the Boston Globe.
Solid panel. Hey, we also have an Amazon storefront, which you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
I like the Merrell hybrid walking sneaker shoes, like the ones that are sort of for hiking. I think they're called Alpines. I love them. I love them.
We'll flag them there. We also have Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations. Listener inspired. Toby, what are this week's deep cut recommendations?
Listener inspired. First off, we got the Allen 2-pack screen protector for iPad Pro 10.5 2017, iPad Air 3 2019, 10.5-inch tempered glass 9H hardness.
Wow.
Apple Pencil compatible ultra clear anti-scraw.
Cool story, bro. Tell it again.
Yeah. And then, and I'm realizing now that I read this slightly wrong, but I'll read it anyway. Bird's Eye Steam Fresh Quinoa and Spinach Power Blend. I thought it was powder blend.
Ooh.
Frozen Sides, 10-ounce bag.
Nice.
Wow.
People are buying their frozen veggies on Amazon.
It's all happening.
Toby, did you know that when we did our live Marry with podcast, the cucumber buyer was there? Did we tell you that?
I did not know that they were there. I did get a message talking about it, saying that, in fact, a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about is stuff they've gotten from Amazon.
Yes, the cucumber buyer was unmasked.
It said, invite me over anytime for dinner.
Hey, you can help us out by shopping us first at amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On, because we will earn commissions on qualified purchases, including these recommendations.
That's right. Anything you buy on Amazon, you can buy at our link, and we might get a little penny from it. Who knows? To support the show. We don't know. All right, Kevin, before we end the business section, do we have, I have to ask, any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Stephanie Johnson and Ashley Sheldon.
Ooh.
Bless you.
Stephanie, Ashley, thank you for joining us on Patreon. We love you so much. Thanks for people who've joined us recently to hear the readathon updates. Thanks for those who've been here forever. And thanks to those who've just been considering it and haven't yet taken the leap. We love you anyway. All right, Kevin, should we get back to the show?
Yeah, thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now.
Looking for ultra cozy sleep? Every Stearns & Foster mattress is handcrafted with the finest materials for irresistible comfort every single night. During our July 4th sale, save $400 on select mattresses. Shop now at stearnsandfoster.com.
Kevin, who's our next wonderful sponsor for this podcast?
We're brought to you by Quince.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, whenever you're gearing up for your next trip, deciding what to pack is always so stressful, and the clothes that you have either don't fit or they're worn out and they just don't match, and you need to be refreshed because when you go on vacation, you want to feel great, so say hello to Quince.
Seriously, say hello to Quince.
Your new go-to for high-quality vacation essentials that you'll be packing for trips to come. Rebecca, you actually just surprised me with a nice seasonal accoutrement.
Kevin, the linen stuff at Quince is incredible.
Yeah.
I've bought myself a couple of linen shirts, like the camp style linen shirts, and I tie them at the waist and wear them all the time. We were just on a car trip, and I was like, Kevin, I wear this black one all the time. I think I should get another one in a different color. Did it right then, and I ordered one for you, and you love it, do you not?
I do. I love my linen jacket that you purchased for me, so I look like I should go on a yacht. I don't know anybody with a yacht, but I really want to go on a yacht just so that I can
yes.
wear that. Yeah, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less within similar brands, and Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes.
Pack your bags with high-quality essentials with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com. That's QUINCE.com/crime. Get free shipping and 365-day-a-year returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
Eddie Murphy is back as Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. He's rejoined by familiar faces like Judge Reinhold and John Ashton as Rosewood and Taggart, along with new characters and new hijinks.
I didn't realize that you couldn't really fly helicopters.
Watch Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. now, only on Netflix. Rated R.
All right, so Toby, we did see a double-blind test about facilitated communication in the documentary. What did you think about that test to see whether or not this was a real science or not?
So what was really great for the purpose of the documentary is it's a very easy test to follow, which is essentially if he shows the facilitator and the subject the same picture, like a picture of a slice of cake, their facilitated communication will come up with cake. But if you show the facilitator a car and you show the person who's being facilitated whatever,
piece of pie,
it's going to be car. So it's always whatever the facilitator says is always what's ID'd, right? So it just kind of shows that, in fact, the facilitator has more control over what's going on than the person who they're facilitating, at least in this one double-blind study. But I didn't get the feeling this was done in complete isolation. Like this seemed like something that's probably been replicated. The guy they have showing it, who's this guy Howard Shane, that's one of his things, is he's sort of talking about how this is at minimum rife for manipulation. And in fact, there was a Frontline episode apparently, which I have not seen, but sounds like it might be pretty interesting, about the problems with this practice. So I thought, as far as like actual experiments and especially like double blind experiments go, it's pretty easy to comprehend what's going on and see the result and understand how it applied.
Laura, you know what occurred to me watching that test? Do you remember when Anna told the story about how when she was doing the facilitated communication with Derrick in the classroom and she typed something slightly different than what he wanted her to say and he freaked the fuck out?
I was sort of editing slightly as I read, which all it did was make it worse. Screwed up the whole thing. But I got to the end and the discussion went on. He typed, "Never, ever, 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 ever do that again."
I was like, is that her way of trying to convince other people that it's real or trying to convince herself that it's real?
Other people.
Really?
Well, I think both. Because I think she had magical thinking. And I think maybe inadvertently, she's convincing herself. But then if you think of her as maybe more, it's hard to know because, again, I just can't figure her out. Was she so manipulative that she was like, well, I know about this study. I work in this field and I'm going to have this happen that's going to prove that actually facilitated communication is real and that I am not influencing it because I am going to be doing something new and trend-setting in this research world, right? But I had kind of also wanted a little bit more, like Toby was talking about, a little more of the methodology about that study. Did they just do it with 5 people and that was the study? I wanted a little more background, I think, on how they debunked that facilitated communication / Ouija board communication.
Yeah, I was curious about all the academic stuff too. I think that argument will say, I don't think this was planned so that people could later on say, oh yeah, he has a mind of his own because he's angry with me. I think it's sort of part of her magical thinking that she probably, in her stream of consciousness, the way she answered probably was thinking back, maybe Derrick wouldn't have said it that way. And out comes, a very
I want him to be
response.
An independent person.
Yeah, right. And again, there's all sorts of other things. I think there's probably some aspects of her current marriage, which appears to be in trouble, that might be manifesting itself here in her, we'll say, relationship with Derrick. I too, Laura, was very confused about, well, if all of this is true, that it's Anna moving the fingers around, why did all this homework get done by the tutor. And I've come to believe that it's probably Anna who typed it later.
Right.
I mean, it's I don't know if anything's time coded.
I think it's the Ouija board effect.
I mean, I don't think that if we take the documentary at face value and the tutor didn't attend the class, and so we assume that the tutor didn't know anything, about the subject, and that the tutor wasn't inclined to guide Derrick's finger, to do all of that. Again, if it's sort of in the voice of D-Man, if it's in D-Man's voice, then maybe it's Anna who did it at a later time, because she is just totally into this fantasy, right?
I'm pretty sure that they say that woman's roommate was in the class, and that the paper that D-Man, or the ideas that D-Man put forward, were very similar to the paper that her roommate did.
And that his homework was not sophisticated. Remember when the professor said that in her deposition that his work was not good, that he just came to class, but to say that he was like a really good student would not be true? I think it was the Ouija board effect.
I just can't imagine, somebody who, I presume that he had no elementary school education, right? They never said anything like that. That, okay, great, we can open his mind now and he can type stuff. Like, if that were even true, he'd be functionally illiterate. How could he just start spelling out like these, multisyllabic words, not even just sort of, putting together these very high level philosophical thoughts? There are conditions which this probably the facilitated communication probably works in a real way. Some conditions in which everything going on internally, the internal monologue, is working.
Like a locked-in situation.
Yeah,
right?
And it's just and they're physically frustrated. And I think when we look in that, when they showed, if it was Frontline or whatever it was, there was a young girl, and I think they said that she was on the autism spectrum. She was demonstrating signs of frustration that one does when they cannot communicate. And so she had all of the internal stuff that would make her want to communicate, or that she has communication within her, and it's just, can she type this out? And it just seems like D-Man doesn't have that inside, right? I mean, if they say that he's 6 to 12-month-old intellect, he's just never going to type this stuff out. And the family's actually okay with that. They understand who he is. And they've always sort of known.
Except for the masturbation part. They don't like that.
Yeah, the masturbation
part. Well, that's like the Catholic guilt. Like, we're not going to, like, that really. And I was like, what kind of medication do you have to give somebody to make them not masturbate? I'm
the
like,
same stuff you give to the sexual predators in those weird, like, sentences.
Chemical castration stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to just say, like, the other thing about, like, Anna, I just have to go back to her. And when you were saying, Kevin, like, his family knew, like, they accepted him for where he was at. And then when she's like, no, he's going to live independently and he's going to do this stuff. And the mother's like hell he is. Like, do you know he's not? But when Anna was like, I will sign my name in blood so that I can be with Derrick, I was like, what the fuck?
You wouldn't even say that about a normal, like,
no.
Kevin, I love you a lot, but I would never fucking say that. That is weird.
Well, I don't.
That was bonkers.
I don't think she was, the way I heard her say it.
No, but it was just so
I think she was being. But all of the language used is very high. I'm going to say highfalutin, but it's...
No, it was weird. She had a phone call with his mom during which she also described a sexual episode that they had.
Well, he's a man in every sense of the word.
Like, the fact that she felt comfortable talking about the sex with a mom was so
say anybody's mom.
Up.
Oh
and then I was like, good for the mom for getting it on tape. I was like, huh.
So what did you do? Please clear this up in my head for me.
Well, my office has enough floor space, and I brought in an exercise mat and the beach towel, and we were able to make things work.
I think a lot of the stuff, and I was thinking particularly with that whole thing where she supposedly like changed the words and Derrick got upset with her, like, to me, that seemed kind of crucial because it shows that he had like a will, which then made it okay for her to have a relationship with him. And that's really like one of the few times that she sort of shows that, other than like, he doesn't like the beer, he likes the red wine. But this was like, it's something she could point to and be like, look, he knows what he wants. Like, he's not afraid to say no. He's not afraid to call me out if he feels like I'm doing something that's in his mind inappropriate. So therefore we should be having sex.
Yeah. I found myself wondering, technology now allows people to identify letters on a keyboard with their eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you can look at a laser keyboard projected on a table or whatever and just look at them. And that, by the way, that's how wearables work, those goggle thingies that people are now using to type. So like, that's going to blow this whole concept over. It's going to be game over for this facilitated communication if it's not real for some people, because if a person can ostensibly see a letter to know to type it, they're going to be able to look at letters on a keyboard and identify them that way. I mean, that's how people people who aren't able to move their bodies are now communicating, with those text to speech things as they're using their eyes. So like, it should become a moot issue theoretically
for those who have the ability to communicate in the first place, right?
Correct. But that's the thing. I think what's telling is who is holding on to the idea that it has to be this way or no way. You know what I mean? It's like people who are unwilling to let go of, it has to be me holding his hand, otherwise it won't work.
Literally and figuratively, holding your hand.
Like that to me will be very telling, because it's like if somebody brings about an innovation where they're like, hey, this person will no longer need someone sitting next to them to talk, let's try that. And then the facilitated communicator is like, no, that would never work. It has to be me. Sort of like Gypsy Rose Blanchard's mother being like, I have to go to every doctor's appointment.
Well, it's like a codependent relationship.
Yeah. Well, it's codependent, except that the person didn't consent to the codependent relationship. So
which a lot of times they don't. So
that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And I also just want to say I have never gone into a jail where the women get pink jumpsuits, and that was I was like, wow, look at that.
You like that jail, huh?
I like that jail. Usually they're preferable. Like green or orange or brown. I was like, pink. That's nice.
Yeah.
Maybe that's their going out jumpsuit.
It's their going out to court jump. We're going in the pink today.
Kevin, I just want to mention one person we didn't talk about, Derrick's brother, John.
Yeah.
He's like the only kind of like, I mean, I don't want to say he's the only. He is, I think, the most reliable, like, narrator.
Of the narrators? Yes. Yeah, I would love to either have a beer or take a class from Dr. John Johnson, or both. I mean, we heard he was in a PhD program. I'm assuming he's completed that. I think he gave off sort of the perfect combination of Big Brother, protective vibes, and a very sober analysis, and just a very caring person. It seems like he always has had Derrick's back in a very natural way. Like, he just sort of never communicated any sort of pity or anything that would be coddling. He's looking out for him. And in fact, the only time he sort of broke down was describing the rug burns that they found on his back and his backside from the sexual assault. He just seemed like a really cool dude, and I think Derrick and Daisy are lucky to have him in their lives.
Derrick is slight. He's 5'3", 5'4", and she was exerting so much force on him that his back was being drug across this mat, and it was leaving scars. That woman did not give a damn about my brother.
My only thought is, like, at the end, like, one of the last things that you hear, it's like in the last 5 minutes, is Anna's ex-husband saying she's a pathological liar, right? And it got me wondering, what if this was made by the people who did Dr. Death, for instance, and instead of this whole, like, is this above ground or is it below? Is this okay? Is it not okay? There's all these. What if it had been made like, here you've got this woman who's like, she's got some kind of problems and she is prying away this kid from this family and using the power of her race, her status in academia, all these different things, making assumptions about what Daisy knows about the condition, when in fact she's actually quite experienced working with people with disabilities. It just seemed like there was another, I don't think it was necessarily superior, but it did get me thinking, like, you could have gone at this from a sort of a predator kind of inserts themselves into this family unit, right? And starts prying away this person who really doesn't have a whole lot of autonomy just in general.
How crazy making that is, right? How crazy making that is for the family.
And it's like John is in her world. Like, I don't know what his degree is in, but he's in academia, right? And there's nothing freaking more regimented than academia. It's like, She's a professor. He's in a doctoral program. He's trying to navigate all this stuff. There's a bunch of other interesting stuff that they didn't really go into, which if you kind of framed it a little bit differently and you looked at it as a family trying to keep themselves together and keep this brother away from this woman who's crazy, would have made I think an interesting, like, if I had bought the rights to this thing to make like a TV show, that would probably be the approach I would take.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be more sort of compelling in that way. Anyway, that just occurred to me.
Absolutely. As a scripted series, like, what was she a professor in, remember? The intersection of race and disability.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So fucked up.
She's like Exhibit A.
You're the blue skies kind. The let's take the long trail kind. The immerse yourself in nature kind. The teach a new generation to love and preserve it too kind. The cold local brews after a day full of adventure kind. The adventurous kind. The friendly kind. The local culture seeker kind. And simply the kind. You're the check out visitparkcity.com right now kind. Park City, Utah. For the mountain kind.
The South Dakota Stories, Volume 5. South Dakota seemed like the perfect place to unplug. But I ended up connecting to the world around me. A world where each sunset was painted, where I felt adventure's pulse with every step, and where cold water trickling, pine swaying, and grunting bison became my favorite soundtracks. I just wish I didn't have to leave. There's so much South Dakota, so little time.
Get an 11% rebate at Menards. Keep your house or deck clean with Mold Armor products. Featuring built-in microban technology for enhanced cleaning power. Tackle your decking, siding, driveway, or any surface with ease. Mold Armor House Wash cleans mildew, mold, and algae stains. Plus, it's easy to use. Just spray and rinse off. Save big on cleaning products at Menards. #1 in customer satisfaction among home improvement retailers according to J.D. Power. For more information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Save big money at Menards.
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. With the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers. In fact, Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/podcastfree. All lowercase, shopify.com/podcastfree, shopify.com/podcastfree.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let the listeners know. Should they check out Tell Them You Love Me on Netflix? What do you think, Laura Bricker? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this documentary?
This is one of the more disturbing things we've watched in quite some time. Thankfully, it was only an hour and a half long in that area. And I feel weird giving it a thumbs up because it's so disturbing. However, it poses a lot of really interesting questions in terms of somebody working in the field, in the community of people with disabilities, taking advantage of their position in that field to sexually assault this, adult man who really isn't able to speak for himself in the traditional sense. I was really fascinated by this character of Anna, the facilitated communicator, just because she was portrayed in this documentary and she willingly took part in this documentary. And I think for me, that was, as somebody who studies psychology and is really interested in the whys of people getting into situations, seeing her in the level that we did in this was really interesting. So it's disturbing. It's not something I probably would have watched on my own, but thumbs up if you are interested in something that is really out of the ordinary in terms of what we typically review.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Tell Them You Love Me?
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up. There's a lot to think about with this. And I think there's probably even more to think about than they actually bring out in it. But there's just enough there anyway to really, I don't know. I ended up thinking about it quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, some of it's a disturbing, very sad story. But I think they do a pretty measured job of not being too judgmental and kind of letting you sort of figure it out, and sort of at the end, I think you've got enough evidence to feel fairly strongly in a certain direction, but it's not like a polemic. It's not like you're getting beaten over the head. Like these people are good, these people are bad, whatever. So yeah, I give it a thumbs up. I thought about it quite a bit, and I think it's like Laura was saying, it's not like our typical kind of thing, but I think it touches on a lot of the same issues that good true crime does, but just in like a slightly different environment.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm also going thumbs up. I think this was very thought-provoking, and it does give you something to chew on. You know, we have stories about predators all the time. They come in different shapes and sizes. The question ends up being, like, really, what is going on with Derrick? What is his interiority like? What is he capable of? And is he able to do the things that Anna says that he can? She says she opened up his mind. Did she? That's for the listener to decide, although they don't leave you hanging. They certainly give you enough information to make this very thought-provoking. I think Anna's own words are very, very enlightening as to her character, although I think in the end, as far as the deeper questions about some of the people here, we may not ever get those kinds of answers, but it was a documentary that was well put together, and I think it's going to be a conversation starter for a lot of folks. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I like this documentary a lot. I don't think it's hard to deny that the group with the most agency, you know, in America are white men. The group with second most agency in America are white women, and white women have a lot of power. And this particular white woman did a lot with the power she has, and it is disgusting. And she is remorseless. And the documentary is all about that. And that's from scene 1. It's not much of a spoiler. So I really, really like this documentary a lot. It's hard to watch, but it is so thought-provoking. And I actually been thinking about it pretty much ever since we watched it. There's a lot at play here, a lot of play around issues around disability, a lot of play around issues around race, power dynamics, academia, science. It's really good. I really think you should watch Tell Them You Love Me and let us know what you think about it. It's a real thinker, in my opinion. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, I got to ask, do we have a cat of the week this week?
We have a dog of the week this week.
Oh.
Because I know you love the dog, Rebecca.
I do. I'm a fan.
This was recommended by listener Angela Mason. Angela sent us a link to a news article that I'm going to tell you about Streeter, the dog, an incredible canine who did not hesitate to jump off a bridge and drop 40 feet into the Pensacola Bay to catch a bad guy.
Wow.
So basically, this is a county canine named Streeter. He was treated at the hospital recovering after sustaining minor injuries during his jump off the bridge. He jumped from the Highway 90 bridge at Scenic Highway in pursuit of shooting suspects who also jumped off the bridge. Whoa. He landed in the water following the 30 to 40 foot fall, recovered by deputies. He went to the animal hospital overnight, released. He's in good spirits and will be on light desk duty this week, and he's enjoying extra treats. So that is amazing. The fact that that dog like jumped 40 feet off a freaking bridge after, that's like, holy shit. I wouldn't jump off a bridge.
I can't even get my dog to jump off a dock after a ball, and he loves to swim.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for sending that in. Streeter the canine.
All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you with their animals to be nominees for Pet of the Week, of course, they can email them to us at crimewriterson@gmail.com. But if they want to reach out to you on social media, how can they find you?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Twitter and Instagram.
How can you be found, Toby Ball?
At Toby Ball NH.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm a Kevin P. Flynn.
Well, if you want to follow me everywhere, including Twitter or Instagram, anywhere else, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. You can also follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On, but I encourage you mostly to join our incredible community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. You just go to our regular Facebook page, hit find the group, and join us there. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll also get the Crime Writers On After Show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our editor is the wonderful Livy Burdett. The executive producer of this show is Kevin Flynn. This program was recorded in the Triage Yoga Studio above the Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the Closet, in a New Hampshire basement where I also honestly tell Kevin exactly what to type. It's true.
Be nice if you held my hand once in a while.
On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you
later.
Do we have, I have to ask, any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Probably. I forgot to fill them in.
Make it up.
Uh-oh.
Crime Media.
Give your bathroom a fresh look with help from Menards. Elger offers high-quality plumbing fixtures that you can count on. From spa-quality bathtubs to toilets and more, American Standard has it all. Like the Diplomat Brown Toilet, featuring an ever-clean antimicrobial finish that prevents mold, mildew, and stains. Find American Standard toilets at Menards. #1 in customer satisfaction among home improvement retailers, according to J.D. Power. For more information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Save